The Bachelor and the Bobby-Sxr is a 1947 American screwball comedy starring Cary Grant, Myrna Loy, and America's sweetheart, though as a teen, Shirley Temple. And this is what you would call a movie of a different era because it's a movie in where I think 17-year-old Shirley Temple's character falls in love with artist Cary Grant, who comes after having seen her mother at court because he got in the middle of a brawl and was warned sternly that he better keep his nose clean or else he's gonna end up in jail. He goes to school to do a lecture, and at which point Shirley Temple, who is the I think they may have written her as sister because they didn't. Myrna Loy maybe didn't want to be the mother of this character, even though you look at them and it's totally mother daughter. 17-year-old Shirley Temple falls in love with middle-aged Cary Grant, who is the bachelor and is artist who seems to have all these women throwing himself at her, and she falls in love with him. And indeed, she sneaks over to his house because she wants to be one of his models, of course, in costume. There's always a wink, wink in costume sort of thing. It's we're very much in code. I just reviewed Mr. Blanding Builds His Dream House, and Cary Grant and Myrna Loy are sleeping in separate beds in that movie, which is like, and they're supposed to be happily married. And it's like bullshit. If I was married to Cary Grant, if I was married to Myrna Loy, we'd be sleeping together in the same bed and stuff would be happening. But no, it is code. The Cade's code is here, and there's all this stuff that even married people can't actually sleep in the same bed. But apparently, a 17-year-old girl can be totally obsessed with a 50-year-old or a bachelor, an older man, and it's played for a screwball comedy laugh. She is discovered. Shirley Temple is discovered in his in Cary Grant's house. Cary Grant's house, Cary Grant had come home and not noticed her asleep on the couch, and then when he had just did discover her, the Myrna Loy and her the guy who's the Baxter of this movie, who is interested in Myrna Loy, the assistant attorney general, something prosecuting attorney, burst in, and it looks like it's going to be bad for him for a while. He ends up in jail, but no, it's okay. But he has to go along with actually becoming Shirley Temple's beau, humoring her, not being the martyr, not being like, oh, we'll just make it hotter for bubbling, super sensual, sexy Shirley Temple. The first scene of Shirley Temple in this movie is her waking up in bed and doing a stretch, and it's like, oh boy, we're heavy into let's make this teenage girl as super hot and sexy as we can, which there's just a weird thing around Shirley Temple and what happened to her as a movie star, and just how she was sexualized. And it's one of the it's you get the sense that this is one of the reasons, other than she just aged out of being a star, that maybe she also just took a step back from this because all of the attention she would get from all the weird, gross attention she as a young woman or a young girl would get from men was just really fucking gross. Was someone who, that reason, didn't really very much trust men at all because of that. And this is just a weird movie in that it seems to kind of go into that because she's lusting after Cary Grant, and Cary Grant has to pretend to be her beau, and her boyfriend, and they kind of they 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 make it as a comedy, but it's really disquieting. It is interesting that you get Cary Grant and Myrna Loy in scenes together, and like, oh, they kind of understand each other, and it's like this kind of mature energy, but you still have, pouty, um, sexualized Shirley Temple kind of like cuddling up to Cary Grant. And it's just, you got to think, you have that sense that there's a part of the audience there is older men who just think this is probably um is is a good thing. This was actually Shirley Temple was really struggling at this point in her career. This is near the end of her career, but this is actually one of the ones where it was actually success, and it actually won an Academy Award for the best original screenplay for this film. I don't know what it was up against, but it's just like one of those bizarre things. Yeah, yeah. Rudy Valley is the was the Rudy Herbert Pryor Valley, known professionally as Rudy Valley, was an American singer, musician, actor, and radio host. He was one of the first modern pop stars of the teen idol type, and actually he plays because of he is like a middle-aged guy, and by this point he is the assistant district attorney in this. So that is kind of weird as itself. Um, uh, yeah, yeah. So that's just like it is an odd movie because it's definitely we're switching over into teen movies. I don't know. It's like 1947. You get the sense that like this is the 1947 kind of 1950s, this post-war period of like we've got teen culture coming up, and in some ways this is old Hollywood with Cary Grant and Myrna Loy mixing with like kind of a weird, we're getting into kind of teen culture, but it's teen culture at this point of the 50s, which is very much written by adults for children and for the kids, and it's kind of writing down to it, versus you get into the 60s and you get more of the youth culture actually taking over a little bit more of their own voice, coming through and bursting through kind of weird 50s conformism or something like that. So it's an interesting, icky movie starring some like really wonderful talent. I mean, and actually I have to give it to like Shirley Temple is doing a good job here. She pops on the screen. She's a little bit broad, but she's asked to play this very kind of broad, horny teenage girl kind of characters who's, going for Cary Grant. When she looks at Cary Grant, they through movie magic he turns into a guy wearing kind of a knight's shining armor and kind of glowing in this way. So it's that kind of silliness, but really disquieting as well. I just finished doing the whole thing of The Tender Shoot, which is about an older man pursuing a young girl. Now this is haha joke is a young girl pursuing an older man, and the older man being forced to go along with it. But it's got that weird kind of queasy kind of wish fulfillment thing, which, yeah, it's still, it's not quite Lolita or The Tender Shoot, but it's an echo there. There's an echoes there. All right, that is The Bachelor and the Bobby-Sxr. Uh, yeah, definitely weird note in Cary Grant's career, and in Shirley Temple's career, and I guess in Myrna Loy's career too. So, all right, I've been Jay. More videos later.